Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Dr. PMH Atwater. She is an internationally recognized authority on near-death experiences. She has devoted her life to the research of NDEs and written 19 books and has been on various popular TV and radio shows. Thank you so much, PMH. This is an honor to have you on here. I'm so happy to meet you.
So much fun. Let me put a little correction in here on the 19th book. The book bombed. That is to say, I sent it out to the advanced readers, and they all said, bless their hearts, like Ken Ring and Bruce Grayson, they said, no, it has to be a memoir. And, how does a researcher write a memoir? I don't even know what a memoir is.
That's the only thing I wrote was one book, and it was my memoir. So I don't know. I don't know how to do research.
So I've been sort of struggling to figure out, how can I come from just me and birth and my childhood years? And I mean, that to me sounds so ridiculous, but
really?
Yeah, that's what people want.
I just started my earliest memory and went on.
Yeah, so I'm struggling with that, and I told
you're struggling with your 19th book, number 19.
That will be my 19th book, the one I'm currently struggling with. And I told everybody I have to clean my house first. I'll go back to the book.
If I said that, it would never get done.
But it's too dusty for me, and it's got to be clean. Well. We can talk about anything we want to in the field of near-death studies. That's huge in talking about anything we might want to. One of the first things I want to talk about before I forget it is this thing about medicine, doctors, and what do NDEers go through if they have something wrong or something difficult, or they have a question and they need to go to an MD of some kind or a doctor of some kind. That can be really, really difficult. Difficult because most NDEers, not all of them, of course, but most of them come back super sensitive. Therefore, you can't go running to a doctor and say, treat me, help me, what do I do next? Let me give you an example of one of mine. This was a woman near a very, very large hospital. Actually, it was Johns Hopkins. She was an adult, and she had a real serious difficulty. She was rushed to the hospital. I still don't know that doctor's name. I've been searching for this doctor's name for a long time, never got it, but his role model is this. Part of his workup, he asked this woman, did she ever have a near-death experience? Can you imagine that? I'm hoping every doctor, as part of their workup, says, have you ever had a near-death experience? Because if you have to be treated differently.
I wish they would ask that in triage at the emergency room.
Yes.
Because maybe you died in the squad on the way there, and you're too afraid and embarrassed to tell, and they don't see anything wrong with you and send you home. Where if you said, I just had a near-death experience in the squad, they'd say, bed 1, trauma room. You know what I mean? Like they would know something seriously wrong here. Do more tests.
Well, yeah, she was rushed to the hospital. the doctor in the emergency area, as part of his workup, asked, "Have you
Wow.
ever had a near-death experience?" She said, "Yes, when I was 9 years old." He said, "Tell me about it." She did. He then immediately took the medicine he would have prescribed to her and gave her the slightest dose he could give. In other words, he did not give her an adult dose. He gave her not only a child's dose, but even less. Because he lowered the dose, she was out the next morning perfectly fine. I hope everybody hears this. The average near-death experiencer comes back much more sensitive than they ever were before. And so they have to be treated differently.
Yeah. Last
Absolutely
year, I was at the dentist and I started going out of body. They called the squad. My blood pressure went way up. They thought I was having a heart attack. I'm like, I'm the opposite of pain. I'm not having no pain. I felt so good. I was just slightly out of body a little bit.
Well, it changes the chemistry.
It was just numbing medicine, actually. Well. It wasn't even for pain. It was numbing. That was all.
Yeah, well, the chemistry of the body changes as well. In my case, 3 weeks ago, very suddenly, I was rushed to the hospital. They all thought I was having a stroke. And I kept saying, no, this is not a stroke. Well, a mini stroke. No, it's not a mini stroke. So they took me to the hospital. I was there for 3 days. They can't use an MRI on me because I have electrical sensitivity. Warning anybody out there with electrical sensitivity, and most near-death experiencers have that, 60% in my research base. That's a large percentage of us. If you have electrical sensitivity, beware of magnetic, resonance.
MRIs.
You can't hardly handle it. I can't get within 3 rooms of one of those. It's just so painful. I can't handle them. So they used other kinds of tests. At the end of 3 days, they said, your heart medicine is killing you. Ta-da!
Wow.
The heart medicine that was prescribed to me a year ago worked just fine then, but over time it hadn't been checked. I'm getting better. I'm now, in the build a better body routine. I'm exercising. I'm doing, very different kinds of things. So that obviously is building up my heart. The purpose of the medicine was to lower my heart. I got caught in the middle, and by golly, it was killing me.
My goodness.
I came within a hair's breadth of death again. Of course, everybody in the hospital gets excited about that, and I say, well, been there, done that. I know the routine. That's not a big deal for me to die again. I've already died 3 times. I mean, what else? And according to my doctor back in Idaho, I had died again a number of times. But, death is a routine for me. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we have another experience. Just because a lot of people die, don't have an experience, and we could be one of those, even though we've had
everybody else was excited, but not me. But my surprise was the medication. So I'm using this as an example for all near-death experiencers who listen to your podcast, their families, anybody else who might listen to your podcast. Please be aware that the average near-death experiencer cannot handle medicine that most people can. You maybe be able to handle a little bit of it. You might have to have something entirely different. And since then, John Hopkins recently has done a lot of work in this area and put out some papers on it. So get a hold of IANS, the International Association of Near-Death Studies, www. I always put services@ians.org, and that gets me right away into the office. And get a hold of John Hopkins' latest findings on near-death experiences. Please, everybody, get that. You need to have that to know more about how medicine, our normal types of medicine, hospitalization, can affect a near-death experiencer, and what medical people need to know about that, what the experiencer needs to know about that, so they can alert their physician. So that's a really big deal. Of course, when we're talking about after effects, that's a funny one for me, because all of us have them, some more than others. I happen to be one of those that I have a lot of them.
I've always said I pass out easily. I never attributed that to near-death experience before, but I'm wondering now if it could be.
Yes, it very definitely could be. And another one that I have found with most experiencers who have just had the experience, maybe within a year after they've had their experience, maybe a little longer than that, watch your breathing. What I have found with most of them who've had a near-death experience, they'll go through periods of time when suddenly they're not breathing. And they go about their usual routine, maybe driving, maybe talking on the telephone, doing whatever, but they're not breathing. The lungs are not working. There is no air going in or out. They feel just fine, as if nothing had ever happened. I trace that to the vagus nerve, the most important nerve in our body that connects all of our organs. And I didn't catch on to this until, was it maybe a year ago, 2 years ago by now? You'll love this. I was outside trimming my crepe myrtle. I'm out on a big ladder. I've got the big shearing clippers, and I'm almost on top of the ladder, getting that final branch out there. This voice within said, "Get off the ladder." And, I listened to that voice within, our soul, whatever you want to call it, that inner voice. So I started to climb down off the ladder, and I missed a step.
Oh.
And I'm flying off into space. Oh. I mean, I didn't fall down. I went flying. And the only place I could safely land, because on one side was the wheelbarrow filled with tools. On the other side was cement blocks.
Oh.
So, there was only this little edge between one disaster after another that I could possibly land, and that's where I landed. And fortunately, the lawn was just watered the day before, so the dirt and the lawn were soft. So I lit, and my head did not go down. I was partially up.
That's good.
And right away, something else started breathing for me. I was in a state of shock. I could not do anything. I was frozen in time. And this other force took over breathing. It was bringing the blood from all parts of my body into the heart area to take care of the heart. It was taking care of the brain. It was taking care of me fully, and I wasn't doing anything but being frozen. And when that was over, then I had control again. I could breathe normally again, and left with the puzzle. What was that? Who or what took over? I mean, you might say, well, an angel came or a guardian came. No, it was something in me. So I did a lot of study. And what I found was that nerve, the vagus nerve, when it takes over, it completely takes over. It makes certain that the heart has all the blood it needs, that the brain has all the air it needs. It makes certain that those things happen whether you are aware or not. And in researching the vagus nerve more and more, I have come to believe and know that as part of the near-death process, as part of being in that episode of dying, that the vagus takes over and ensures that we live. And afterward, we're back again, still once in a while. We may have a health problem. We may not even know about it. The vagus seems to need to pop in once in a while. And it does. Let me give you an example. Soon after my experience, I'm reasonable human being again. I was living then in Boise, Idaho. It was around noonish. I was driving in noon traffic down Vista Boulevard.
I was going to bring that up. I heard you talk about that on a video one time.
Yeah.
Last time you were driving with a friend.
Well,
I'm sorry. Maybe that wasn't it.
Toward Vista Boulevard, toward the Capitol building, and I am not breathing.
Okay.
And I'm in traffic, stoplights, no breath, but I'm perfectly logical. I'm feeling good. I went through the traffic. I went around the Capitol building. I headed out toward Floating Feather Airport on State Street. Still no breath. And I got to thinking, well, the lungs really do need air. So maybe I better stop and do something. So I pulled the car over to where I could, turned it off, went into a state of meditation, and in that state of meditation, I became a power source, and I went into my lungs and I blew and blew and blew and did everything I could to get that air coming back, going through my lungs, going through my nose, natural breathing process. Took me about 15 minutes, but I was able to get the nose and the chest working again, came out of it, and I was breathing properly, and I could just do everything I wanted to. But I found this again and again and again, Peggy.
Are there always time
All
shifts
kinds of experiencers.
with these? Was there a time shift with that as well?
It seems to be part of the near-death process.
Okay.
It seems to be part of coming back from a near-death experience. Sometimes our lungs don't work like they ought to, and the vagus nerve takes over. I have talked to very few near-death experiencers that ever talk about the silver cord. Few of them do. That cord that supposedly connects our body to our higher body, the physical body to the astral body, that keeps us connected to the greater us. I mean, a few talk about seeing the silver cord, but hardly anybody.
I hear of it sometimes.
I think the vagus nerve is that physical component in the physical world that connects us to the silver cord. I truly believe that the vagus nerve is the physical component to what we call the silver cord. So those two are connected. And I want to convey that. I want children, adults, anybody who's had a near-death experience, if you go through periods of time afterward where you don't breathe, I truly feel that vagus nerve is at work. And even during your near-death episode, the episode itself, it is that vagus nerve that brings you back. I
wonder if we're inside of that, and we try to describe what we say is a tunnel, that if we're inside that, who knows?
Well, very few people have a tunnel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still considered number one, but yet less than a third of the people ever experienced the tunnel.
I experienced the tunnel, but I didn't give it the name tunnel until years later when I heard people describe it as a tunnel. I just knew I was in this tight space and I was going way up in this wind speed. But then later I heard people talk about the tunnel. So I thought, well, it was a tunnel then. That's what I was in. It was a tunnel. But I just knew it was through like a straw being sucked, up.
Yeah. I never experienced any kind of tunnel, and I had 3 of them. 3 in 3 months. I go back and I call it the heavenly sledgehammer effect. It took that to change me, really. I had 2 in January of 1977 and 1 in March. And then later that fall, I had 3 major relapses. So 1977 wasn't exactly my year.
Now, yours was from childbirth, right?
Well, no, I was raped and then became pregnant. And it was the difficulties, miscarried, and it was all the difficulties in the miscarriage that caused the 3 deaths.
Okay.
2 in January and 1 in March. So that's what did it. And I look back at that and I call it the heavenly sledgehammer effect. Because I was just so determined. Life was was going one way, and it took something that horrific to turn me around and go another way. I mean, there's just no way that I would have ever changed myself it changed my life to that extent. Before I died, I was deeply into metaphysics, deeply into the spiritual path. At the age of, well, at the age of 5, I did my first double-blind study with, with a control group. I was always wanting to tear the world apart, to find out what made everything tick. I mean, I was born that way, tearing the world apart.
Me too. I drive people crazy.
It's one of those people. So, of course, first grade for me was a nightmare. Oh, it was a nightmare.
Mine was too.
Horrible nightmare.
Yeah.
Because of Pearl Harbor.
Oh.
My walk to school was a walk of death. Because in those days, if anyone in your family died in the war effort, you were given a large gold decal, a star, gold to put on your living room window to show everyone that someone in your family died in the war effort. So you had all these gold stars on people's windows. So me walking to school, I had to walk by all these gold stars. And I mean, kids know what's going on. I knew that meant death. So I'm walking this path of death to get to the first grade. And this one place, this one home, I'll never, ever forget it. They had 6 new gold stars overnight. Now, sometimes I say 5 stars, but really there were 6. 6. And I just stood there and cried and cried and cried. I don't recall one single morning in all of first grade where I didn't have to stop my tears and control my shudders just to walk in the door of my first grade classroom. All of first grade. Because in those days, World War II, Hitler, Pearl Harbor was every day in your life reality. Whether you were a kid, whether you're an adult, didn't matter. You were living in this. I mean, we talk about Ukraine and Russia now, 10 times that. And you get an idea of what almost everyone was going through, no matter where you were living in World War II. And especially where I was living in Twin Falls, we had a lot of our people that went and died in the war effort. So it was super real. So first grade was certainly haunted by this and painted by this, but I was born with dyslexia and synesthesia. Well, in those days, who ever heard of dyslexia? Even now, who's ever heard of synesthesia? Synesthesia is a difference in the limbic system in the brain. Your sensory abilities are different. So I was the only kid in class who could smell color, see music, and hear numbers. And I'd talk about that. Well, the teacher and everybody else said I'm a liar. And the principal became such an issue that the principal called up my mother to come talk to me about it. She was convinced I was a liar. Everybody was convinced I was a liar. Liar. And by the end of the first grade, I was so angry because I knew I was telling the truth. I had to sit on this stool in front of the class wearing, this
Dunce hat.
said dunce on it as an example of a bad kid who told lies. And at the end of the first grade, I was so angry. I decided that all adults were stupid and I was never going to be an adult when I grew up. And so my entire growing years were kind of different because I was kind of different. And I won't go into all of that. In my 19th book that I'm writing, I do go into it, but I won't go into it on your show, except that much. So I recognize synesthesia right away, of course, when I'm working with children, when I'm working with adult experiencers, because one of the things that happen to a lot of experiencers, people who have a near-death experience, they come back with synesthesia. Ta-da! Especially the children. And who recognizes that right away? Me. And it took a long time, many years, for me to get that point across. Not me, but the fact that, hey, there are obviously neurological changes that can happen after a near-death experience, because so many experiencers are coming back with synesthesia, differences in sensory abilities.
Do you think you had an NDE as a child before then? To cause that, or you think maybe some people just have it?
I truly feel that near-death experience itself causes it.
Okay.
Because of changes in the neurological system that occur or can occur in a near-death experience. That's children and adults. You see it more with children, but you can see it with adults as well. Certainly, I was an adult when I had mine. What we often call psychic abilities or intuitive abilities are really, for the most part, differences that are caused by the near-death experiences. They're differences in the limbic system in the brain. And we haven't done that much work yet with neurologists, but we've done enough to recognize that this kind of thing is part of the near-death experience. We say, well, you come back more loving, more open, more psychic, more intuitive. But we don't get into the physiological after effects. Those are all psychological. We don't get into the physical after effects. And you'll find that in all of my books. Because we must look at the physiological after effects.
Don't we have more allergies? Like if we've had an NDE for some reason?
You betcha. In brief, the average near-death experiencer returns smarter than they were before. See, there are changes in brain structure. There are changes in brain function. There are changes in the nervous system, the digestive system, and skin sensitivity. And many also have electrical sensitivity. So there are changes in the body function, the brain body function. We're not just coming back more loving or more psychic. There are specific changes that occur. So that's one of my biggies that I talk a lot about, because I think it's so important. It's just so, we go to doctors innocent. When you go to a doctor, realize that you need to be more open and ready to converse with that doctor, because you will help the doctor as well as maybe the doctor can help you. What we're finding with most near-death experiencers, they do a lot better with homeopathy than they do with drugs. They do a lot better with natural healers than they do with MDs. So it's just a little warning here that you need to be alert. Now, especially with children, the average child is medicated according to their size and weight and age. What if that child had a near-death experience? We need to look again at what's happening with children. And we need to protect them as much as possible, or at least open them up, like that wonderful ER doctor at Johns Hopkins University. You know, and he says, as part of the workup, he says, "Did you ever have a near-death experience?" She said, "Yes," at the age of 9. This is so massively huge that I wish more people would realize it. Mm-hmm. Not only the near-death experiencer, but the medical community.
Yeah. And the time shifts too seem to go along with that. Like, I remember hearing you talk a few years ago just about you and a friend was driving along somewhere, and all of a sudden, like, you were, like, time had shifted. You were somewhere else, and like, yes, you don't know how you got there. And because I've been kind of noticing these time shift things, hearing other people talk, and I've experienced it, not a lot, but a little.
Oh yeah, we were sort of lost in time for 2 hours. You know, it's like, where is the world? I mean, I did not recognize the road we were traveling. I didn't recognize the terrain, and I knew the road and the terrain, and all of a sudden, we are somewhere else. And it took a lot of driving and almost 2 hours before I could finally find a way out. And I noticed I haven't told hardly anybody this, but I noticed we were driving north, and I noticed to my left, kind of like a sparkly, it wasn't really an opening in the trees in the road. It was rather sparkly circle around that opening. And I saw I could get out of the dimension where we were, and I could get into the dimension where we needed to be. And I turned to the left and I gunned it.
I mean, because I've heard guests say, you know, like, these two semis was coming right at them. There's no way they were going to live. They braced for death, and then they were 3 miles down the road.
Yeah.
Just things like that. I've experienced a few things. It's just like, how did this just happen?
Every once in a while, I truly believe we phase shift in the time continuum. We do a phase shift, and I don't know other words to describe it except to just say when it comes to rhythm and feel and air and molecules, we can do a phase shift. We move out of that phase and shift into another one. And some people call that time travel. And you're shifting phases of where you are in the time-space continuum. And most near-death experiences come to the point where they realize what you're talking about. When you talk about a phase shift.
Well, on the other side, we were in a telepathic realm. So yeah, we're going to hear that voice you call the voice like none other when we come back. And we're in that realm where time doesn't exist like it does here. It moves and goes. And so it makes sense that when we come back, we're still going to experience that sometimes. And it seems to me like everything we experience on the other side will continue in some way or form or time once we're back. It's just my logic.
We come back into the particular phase of time, space, and reality that we were in before. But we can also shift back out of that or phase out. And we hear so many near-death experiencers talking about phasing, shifting phases to where they're in another time-space continuum. And they talk about their experiences there, and there's books out now about their experiences in these different areas that they visited, and that's great, that's wonderful, and it's fascinating, but that doesn't necessarily help you live the life you have here in this body at this point in time. So what I have come to accept is that once in a while these can occur, that there's nothing abnormal about them. Hear that. There's nothing abnormal about them. That's really part of this incredible universe that we live in, and that we can phase in and out of time. And we can get to the point, I know some people who get to the point where they can direct these shifts, and they can live their life in another area, come back and live life here. So it's almost like they have a family over there and a family over here, a life over there and a life over here. And I have yet to come across any of them who are over time really are comfortable with that. At the time it's kind of neat and it's kind of fun, and they can go on with it for several years. But you get to the point where that becomes problematic. So I really recommend that if you want to phase out into other areas, that's fine, but come back. This is the life you have. This is the body you have at this point in time. And when it's time for you to really leave this body and what we call death, you can go to these other places. That's fine. But stay where you are now and develop what you have, enjoy what you have, contribute as much as you can to the fellows around you. Do what you can to not only enjoy where you are, but to contribute to where you are. And, that makes more sense to me than leaving and living a life over here for a while and coming back and leaving again and maybe exploring this over here for a while. I know a lot of people who do that, and that's fine if that's their choice, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What makes sense to me is to live this life you have fully and completely and contribute as much as you can to the world at large and to the life you have, and to develop it to the best that you can. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. And help out your fellows. That makes sense to me. Going and coming, well, that's interesting and that's fun, but how much do you really accomplish? So
You mean that people that are involved in astral travel?
well, you could call it astral travel. That's always interesting. That's always fun. And there are times when that's really helpful. But to base your entire life on astral travel, that to me is problematic.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get involved with that stuff, really. I mean, if somebody wants to talk about it, that's fine, but I don't identify with it.
Yeah, to me, I just enjoy the different levels of what's here.
Yeah.
I enjoy talking to the trees, the land, the grass, checking out what the world is like now here, and keeping track of how our world is changing, and being part of those changes. I enjoy that.
Reality. Yeah. I enjoy reality. And I don't think we have to subscribe to everything that is paranormal or whatever just because we had a near death experience. I mean, it doesn't mean we're, not grounded.
Yes. Keep your grounding. And that's fun. It's fun in the sense that every once in a while, disincarnates can come and go. And usually if it's someone that I love and enjoy, when they die, they'll usually visit and then go on. Or there'll be a flyby, if you'll pardon the phrase. So I've often threatened, but I've yet to do it, to make a sign that goes over our house door, the door to our home, have a sign that says welcome, whether you wear a body or not. Yeah, that to me would be fun to do and comfortable to do. But anyway, meanwhile, back at the ranch, when we're looking at near-death experiences, we really need, I feel, to address children's experiences more than we have, because we get lost or excited with out of the mouth of babes, and we love hearing about what they saw and what they felt, even up to grade school and so forth. You want to hear the kids' stories. They're so pure. Well, that's fine. And then who looks up that kid 5 years later, or 10 years later, or 22 years later, What's their life like then? Is it as easy as it seems, or are there complications? And I really, pardon me for advertising a book, but I really feel everybody needs to read The Forever Angels, near-death experiences in childhood and their lifelong impact. Because it's just big. What kids pick up in my study for the Forever Angels, 397 people. So this is a big study. It's a major study. 1/3 could remember life in the womb. Yoo-hoo, wake up! Medical people, everybody else.
I was on a radio program and a lady was questioning me about that. And she said, someone recently told me, this man, she said that he had his near-death experience as a baby in the nursery, when he was born. She says, how could that be possible? You wouldn't be able to have memory. You wouldn't have language. And I said, I think that we have these experiences in our soul. Not our brain, but our soul. And therefore, our soul is perfect. It doesn't forget like a brain. It is a perfectly encapsulated. And so therefore, it doesn't matter if it was like you say, while your mother was pregnant for you, or during her delivery, or 1 day old, or 3 days old, or 5 months old. I said, my thinking, because I don't know, but it makes sense to me that because this is a near-death experience, we experience it on the other realm. Not with our brain, but with our spirit. And our spirit will never forget because our spirit is perfect and it can't forget. That's just me. It's my logic.
Well, your soul is alive and fully functional. It doesn't need a body to experience things. And I'm going to back and give you an example. In my study, 2 of them could remember their conception.
Wow.
And one of them, when she was older, drew a picture of her parents conceiving her and gave the picture to them. And they were so embarrassed because she was absolutely right. The position, she did it all. She knew and could remember. So many of these so-called little tadpoles that are in the mother's womb can remember being there, and whatever the mother went through, they can remember that. I have all kinds of quotes in the book. Folks, read the book. You're going to be really amazed. And one of the things that children still in the womb are affected by is the mother smoking or drinking. Woohoo, mom, yoo-hoo. Especially smoking. It goes directly to the baby. The baby can smell it, and the baby is affected by it in a very negative way. Mothers don't smoke and don't drink either. Most of them, and in my study, again, this is 397 people, most of them could remember their birth. So I give all kinds of things that they remembered and recommendations they would make for being born in a hospital or wherever. Like lower the lights a little bit. That really, really bright lights hurts the kids. Have a little soft music. That would make all the difference in the world. All kinds of recommendations. And then after birth, all the way up to about the age of 5 or 6, maybe 7, but certainly 5 or 6. These kids, wow, they come back smarter than the average child. They remember things acutely. Most of them out of body trips are normal. They do them often. Read about what it is like for a child that had a near-death experience somewhere between womb and, let's say the age of 5. It directly affects brain and intelligence and the nervous system. Most of these kids are abstracting by the 1st grade. And they're able, most of them know more than their teacher does. Most of them know more than their parents do. In my research base, 90%. Were not able to bond with mother or dad. Couldn't bond. That didn't mean they didn't love them, but they couldn't bond with them. They knew who mom was. They knew who dad was. They operated and were aware of a very different level of functioning and life than we think they are. And if you want to know more about that, please get that book. It is very typical for the average child who had a near-death experience, certainly between birth and the age of 5, again, to be abstracting by the 1st grade. Out-of-body experiences are normal. But for them to not just be abstracting by the 1st grade, but to have an intelligence that is far above that, what is it that I want to make a point here? The fact that they're more intelligent than the average child, not all of them, but most of them.
I'm the exception to the rule. I was dumb.
Yeah, they're more intelligent than the average child. Really gets them into a lot of trouble. They have a lot of problems with being made fun of by other kids. So there's a lot of problems there in being made fun of by other kids. Let me give you a percentage here that I know is just going to blow you away. We're talking here people of any age who've had a near-death experience between birth and the age of 5. Yeah, and now I'm going to stop at 5. It could be 6. But the average birth in the age of 5. Maybe even had one in the womb, but birth to the age of 5. 74% went on to have an incredible life. Several became millionaires. just really did well in the workaday world. Remember that figure, 74%. 74% preferred to either commit suicide or somehow not live in this life. They wanted out. So same figure, 74% became extremely successful. But they didn't like being here. And they wanted out. I have a whole chapter in there on PTSD. We need to look at that. Even with adults, PTSD. They don't want to be here. They want to leave. I think we need, with children, I think we need to realize that the average child does not think of suicide in terms that we do. The average child will think, I was in this beautiful, wonderful, bright world with the bright people when I wasn't breathing. And now that I'm breathing, I'm not in that world anymore. The way to get back to that world is to stop my breathing.
Yep.
A child does not think that this is bad. To them, it's perfectly logical. I'll just stop breathing and I'll be back there. They don't think in terms of how that might upset their parents or how that might sort of muck up their life. They think in terms of that's the only way to get back. I say to all parents of children who've had a near-death experience, teach them visualization techniques. It's that simple. Teach them how to visualize being there, enjoying it, then come back because this is where your life is. This is where you need to be, and just go back and forth as you need. And it's that simple. And we could alleviate so much tension and so much heartbreak. It's just by teaching visualization techniques, again, just that simple. So, when we're talking about after effects, even when we're just talking about the experience itself and where you go and how long you're there and what you experience, it has come to my attention within the last 2 weeks that some experiencers, let's say in their teenage years, maybe the tween and teens, can be exploited and are. They'll come back, more psychic, more knowing, and other people say, oh, here's someone I can use, and I'll be your manager. I will help you I will help you live a better life, a different life. I will be your manager and help you handle this. I never knew that was a big issue, but it is. I'm so surprised. So I've been working with a couple of these people who were exploited. It's like, wow. IANS needs to get this word out. You need to get this word out. That this is normal for kids. Help them handle it. help them grow through it, help their parents realize that there are different ways of handling this. Instead of being a superstar, I'm going to put you on television. I'm going to get you your own show. I'm going to make you famous. I'm going to bring you a lot of money. Exploitation does occur, and I did not think it did.
Wow.
That was a new one to me.
I hadn't heard of that.
I hadn't either, but some of these kids are being exploited.
Wow.
By other people who see, oh, hey, I can use this person. Yeah, I can be the manager. I can develop a great psychic here. Woo, charge a lot of money. Woo. It does happen. I was just flummoxed. Yeah, wow.
I was listening to YouTube of Colton Burpo the other day. And the first time I've heard him say this, he said when he was in heaven, he went to school. And I thought, what?
Ah.
Really?
Yeah. I can believe that. Yeah. In the astral areas, of course there would be schools. Why not?
Yeah.
And with little kids, why not? and a big issue now that I never thought of are people now questioning those people who saw or heard God versus those people who say there is no such thing as God, and those people who, went to hell. Is there such a thing as hell? What is this stuff really about? And they're really attacking everything that the average near-death experiencer comes back with. And it's like, is there really such a thing as hell? What is this stuff about? And certainly 1 out of 7 in my research base had a negative near-death experience, not positive at all. 1 out of 7. So we do have these. And I think Nancy Bush has written about these better and more than anybody else I know. So look up books by Nancy Bush. She's really, really good on that. And her work is just, marvelous, what she's done. Near-death experiences are curious affairs. They really tantalize other people. But what is it? What's life like on the other side of death? What's it like on the other side of death? And all of these kinds of things. I made this list a while ago. What we can learn from near-death experiences. Death does not end life. Yeah. There isn't a single near-death experiencer I've ever spoken to who says something different. There are millions of us.
I'm the only one I know of that was told it is your time. The answer was no, because I demanded to go back, and I was told the answer is no, it is your time. I'm the only one I know that was told that. Have you heard that very much?
Every once in a while.
Do you?
Every once in a while. Yeah, if it isn't your time, you get pushed back. Yeah.
But I'm just told, it was my time. And I hear everybody else saying the opposite,
Well, obviously it wasn't my time. That voice, like none other in my third near-death experience, said I was to be a researcher. Obviously I was coming back. I was to be a researcher. And so, I was given the instructions, and I've been doing that for 44 years. Yeah, I didn't do this kind of thing because I wanted to, or because it seemed right, or for money. God only knows I haven't made hardly anything doing it. I'm a researcher for one reason only. That's what I was told to do in my third near-death experience. I've been doing it for 44 years. So death does not end life. Only the scenery changes at death. It doesn't end life, only the scenery changes. Many see departed loved ones, pets, birds, angels. A lot of people see birds, adults and kids. I can't figure that one out, but they do. Or a power beyond light that is impossible to describe. We are all more capable, smarter than we think we are. Mind is endless. Only thoughts limit. Everyone is psychic, creative, inventive, loved. Everyone. Life is worth its living. There is a central source of existence. Some call this God. Some call it Allah, or hundreds of other names for deity. All healing is based on the willingness to change. Let me say that again. All healing is based on the willingness to change. So is forgiveness. Prayer is real and it works. Children see prayer as a bright or rainbow-banded light that passes from sender to receiver. They see that light. I mean, it's a special light that goes out. Love is the only standard that exists. There isn't any other standard. It's love. And choice is the only process. That's it. What can we learn from near-death experiences? We can go on and on and on about all these things, but if you're gonna really be honest and say what fits everybody, any level, any part of the world, that's it. Yeah.
And I was surprised that I had language, like my earliest memory, like first paragraph of my memoir. I was in a baby bed and I had this memory, and for years, decades, I thought, that's just silly. That makes no sense. But then when I started my memoir, I thought, well, where do I start? And I thought, my earliest memory. And I thought, do I put that in there? Because they're going to think I'm nuts right off the bat. And something just told me my job was to report what happened, not to understand it. Somebody else would do that later. And I'm so glad I followed through with that throughout the book, because my earliest memory, I'm sitting in a baby bed and I'm thinking, now I have language inside my head, this telepathic stuff going on, which I'm sure I didn't have physically. And I'm saying, God, you sent me to the wrong family. These people are weird. They don't like me. And I'm sitting there waiting to be changed. And I can remember this place, which I guess you would call heaven. But, I just thought, I remember this place. I could just visualize this white place. And I just remember that in that place, I was always taken care of. That anything my heart desired, it was taken care of. And so I'm sitting there thinking, you sent me to the wrong family, and I'm waiting to be switched. And silence was my answer. I'm alone now. And I felt abandoned. And, I had that memory off and on through my life, and I thought, I didn't talk to anybody. And I thought, you know what? I'm putting that in there. I'm so glad I did. And then my 5-year-old drowning is, when I tell about it, I feel like people are looking at me like I'm childish because I'm talking like in my child voice almost, because I'm seeing and hearing and I'm experiencing everything through this 5-year-old, and that's the way it's coming out. And I was really embarrassed telling it because even I wrote a poem about it and I told it at the IONS conference because they're probably thinking, why is this grandmother talking like a child? It was like, I'm reading a child's book or something. But it's just how I remember it. I remember thinking, wow, this is cool. I don't have to be in a bedtime. I don't have to eat my vegetables, all these things. And I was just this ghost kid having fun. I was running around yard with other kids, and these 2 boys are walking down the highway. And what are you doing? What are you doing? And I didn't realize it was telepathic talk because it didn't have that word, But then I realized we're just talking. Me and this one boy was talking through our minds. He started answering me. Oh, we've been fishing. We're hurrying to get home. And I thought, no, this is no fun. They really can't see me. So I go on down the highway and I'm flying over. I remember all this stuff. And, I had these memories that just never left. And then I got to be, about a grandmother age. And I just like, you know what? I'm going to start telling my stories because I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. And, and they don't fade. Of course, they don't fade a bit. They stay with you forever. And it's just so strange. All of it is so strange.
It's so normal. That's one of the things the near-death experience teaches us is what's normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what was so strange is normal. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's normal for us to be able to be aware and maybe live in a universe we cannot describe.
Yeah.
That's normal. What's abnormal is to fit into a vehicle and live a life in civilization that is bordered and garnered by rules and limits.
Yeah.
That's abnormal.
Yeah.
And I truly feel we come here to learn what's possible, to learn what we're capable of, what we're not capable of, to learn how the creation process works. I think that's why we're here. My life it's sort of bordered by bookends. I entered about the time of World War II, a little bit before World War II. Now we're faced with what could become World War III. And the culprit, believe it or not, is not Russia. It's China. We don't know what's going on in China, but the fact is they have and still are stealing all of our intelligence and our secrets and everything. And they know more about the American public than the American public knows. They've already been through a lot of our accounts. So what's happening now with Russia may just be the edge.
Tip of the iceberg.
Of what might happen later. So we may or may not have a World War III. But we're certainly faced with that possibility, and it's coming at us just like World War II did. So we're having to look at this and look at what's happening with our children, our teenagers, our young people. They are wanting our country to become a socialist country, not a republic. that is governed by democratic rules. They want something else, not knowing what that something else might lead to, or realizing, or even caring. And what's happening now with the border has been happening for a long time, but more so, is that China is now in league with the cartel out of Mexico. And it's China that is furnishing the fentanyl, not the cartel. That's China. And they're killing off our young people, or rendering them not as able as they were before.
I read yesterday, number one cause of death for ages 18 to 45 now in the United States is fentanyl.
And the fentanyl comes from China.
Yeah, but they're saying it comes from Mexico.
That's because China is now partnered with the Mexican cartel. So it's like wake up time. But what are we waking up to? With a country and a people that would prefer not to look up and see what's really going on. So I look at this and I say, wait a minute here. Those people who come back from a near-death experience, most of them come back more fully knowing and more fully able to realize and cooperate with a world that works. A world that can work for everyone. Not socialism, not capitalism, but a world that really works for everyone, because we are now aware of what life is and how it can work. And for that, I say blessings. Blessings to all near-death experiencers, negative or positive, in China or in the United States or in Britain or in Africa. Doesn't matter where they are. God bless us all, certainly bless us all, that near-death experiences are happening more and more and more. We're talking about them more. To me, that's the real wake-up call.
For such a time as this.
All of us. We are the waker-uppers. And I'm glad you have your show. I'm glad there's IANs. I'm glad people are speaking up. Yeah, we need to do this, to speak up and show and offer that greater message.
Thank you. And I appreciate you so much. Is there anything else that you didn't get to cover?
Oh, I could be, that's a silly question. I could be here forever talking, because there's so much about near-death research, about near-death after effects. But I truly think we've covered the waterfront. And I truly feel that we've offered a new way of looking at near-death experiences, not that they are anomalous and not that they're curious, but rather because they offer a new way to think and live that can help humankind operate in a more fair and better way.
And there's more to them than just the story. I've been trying to get through to people that listen to these, make comparisons, take notes, pay attention what you're really learning. Don't just sit back and be entertained and just listen to this story and only like the ones, those real fantastic stories. I said, because each one was designed just for that person, and hear their life story, and you will be able to fit together the way obviously God did, how this experience would benefit that person throughout their life. Like yours was designed just for you, and mine was designed just for me, to get us through our life and fulfill a purpose, if we all are in fact given one, I'm sure. And there's so many pieces of the puzzle that can come together and give us awareness of what the other realm is really about. Like if you want to see heaven, it's not in just the story. It is in the pieces you put together from all the stories, like you have done with your research, to come to a conclusion of what is really going on there. I mean, we can really use our visualization, like you said, to picture what is there if we put these pieces together. It's like, oh, I see the time shift changes. Oh, I see the telepathic communication. Oh, I see where, you can really broaden your mind, and we can see the other side.
And we can open ourselves up to new and better ways of living.
Mm-hmm.
Just balancing your checkbook. We have, I still keep a ledger. I'm old fashioned. I still keep a ledger. And on the ledger, all my expenditures are my investment in life. Just being able to bring a broader or a different or a different way of living life. We can do that. Not just astral journeys and psychism and all of this kind of thing, but just the demeanor of being, mm-hmm. the way we live our lives, the way we speak, the way we are more open, more intelligent, more able, more willing to show that life can be different. Expressing that, showing that, living that opens up the real world we can all live in.
Yeah, because television, they give people so many choices. They can get involved in pornography. They can get, the internet. They can get involved in gambling. And people get involved in drugs, alcohol, or sex addiction. And I think us NDEers and what we present is just away from all that and getting into an awareness. It's a high moral compass and something pure, a different way of living, because you don't have to follow this path and that path. All these choices out here. There's so many directions a person can go. And I'm very proud, I've said several times on my podcast, I'm very proud that I've never been drug addicted or an alcoholic or had any of those addictions. And I'm not to say that I'm better than other people, but you just have a choice, because I could put women next to me that made those choices, and they may, just say I've lost their children or look like they're 90 years old, or, I'm not saying I'm better. I'm just saying we can live a clean life. Like, I'm very proud that I lived a clean life. And I think I cringe when I look in the newspaper and people my age or around the same age are getting busted for drugs. And I'm thinking, you're supposed to be somebody's rock, somebody's grandparent, somebody's mother. You're supposed to be, that's the way I have lived my life. And from my NDE at 5 years old, I got a high moral compass out of that. I was told in my NDE at 5 years old that I wasn't loved by my family. And then I was told in an audible voice that inside that children are sent here to be loved. That is why God sends them here. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not fair. You just told me my family don't love me, and then now you tell me this? Well, that night after the drowning, I crawled in bed. I thought about everything, and I realized I am to love unloved children like me. And that carried, even though I didn't remember the drowning until after my second NDE 20 years later, it come back to me one night just like it's in the sky, like it's movie trailer. And then more bits and pieces come back later. But the thing is that I started remembering things that happened right after that, how I was changed after that. 5 years old, I was a different kid, an out-of-body experience during rape at 16. And just little pieces start coming back together and just created this picture that just like hit me right in the face. That it was like grand design. And I think everybody can look at their life like that. But you got to be sober. You got to, try to live a clean and good life. And then when you get to this age, I don't know. It's just beautiful. I can't wait to be your age. I've always been that way. Ever since I was a little kid, I'm like, I can't wait to be an old lady. I've always, not saying you're an old lady. I'm an old lady. But you know what I mean? I was like, I love children. I love the elderly. It's just, I've always been that way. And I've always like, I can't wait to be an old lady. And because there's just, and then, my age, I'm like, I feel like I have this wisdom that it took me 61 years to get. Why would I want to go back to 40, 50? I didn't have it then. And I don't know, it's just an amazing age. And then I see like people that spend it on other things, and I just feel sorry for them. So that's my rant.
Well, I prefer to live a life of joy.
Yeah.
Period. I think that covers it.
Yeah. And mine is since my second NDE, because, I was told it was my time, and I pleaded, I want to come back and raise my boys. And then suddenly I was back in that wheelchair in the hospital. And like, I was just in heaven accepting it. Now I'm back. And so once I realized, which took me about 2 decades to realize the impact of that, I just live in gratitude all the time because I got to come back and raise my kids. Like no matter what happens, I got to come back and raise my kids. Like who could ask for anything more? Because not every mother that dies from any kind of childbirth or anything that's separated from her children gets to. And I just feel beyond gratitude every day that God allowed me to come back from that near-death experience. So, while mine wasn't beautiful and butterflies and rainbows, because I fought with God the whole time. Like, hell no, I won't go, I got kids to raise. I can't be here. And people are like, that's not very nice NDE. I'm like, but it meant everything to me is exactly what I needed to feel gratitude. Because I look at my kids, I look at my grandkids, and I think, everything could have been so different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't judge a near-death experience.
Right.
They're different. And they have different viewpoints. Yeah, they're different kinds and types, and that's perfectly good. Don't judge them. Don't ever judge them. Not everybody goes to heaven, but that doesn't mean anything. You go to where you need to go to learn what you need to learn. Period.
Yeah. At 5 years old, I wasn't in a heaven realm. I was just out of body, just being a kid, enjoying that realm. Mm-hmm. But I did get voices, and I did get scenarios to show me and teach things. And I think those things we experience on the other side come back with us and are like an added instinct, a sense. So...
yeah, I think if nothing else, the near-death experience shows us always there is life. in some dimension, somewhere, always there's life. There's no such thing as a lifeless place or vibration or scenario or manifestation of any kind. Always there is life.
And our memories are so important. I realized that from the other side, and talking to other guests. Is one guy, he was going through the tunnel, he's having a life review, and he was remembering things that he did not remember about his childhood before. And when he come back, he talked to his sister, and his parents like, yeah, that happened. He didn't know these things. And I'm like, isn't it so fascinating that the other side is recording all of our thoughts and all of our experiences. And if you have an NDE and you're going to come back, they know that you're going to come back, and they're going to give the experience, and that you have the memories and bring back with you exactly what you will need to, accomplish mission, if that's what you want to call it. Or when we're there for good, obviously, this is how it is. All of our memories, even the ones we've forgotten, are going to be right at our fingertips. And I imagine, say, I see you in heaven on the other side, and you say, Peggy, let me tell you about when I first learned to walk. And I'm like, okay, it's something you wouldn't even remember now, but I'd be able to sit there and watch and experience with you learning to walk. Because I think that's the way it is, just by everything I'm hearing. That we're going to be able to sit in this big theater and say, oh, so-and-so just died. Now we're going to sit back and we're going to watch their whole life. We're not just watching it, though. We're experiencing it as if we lived it. It's just fascinating. I think we all got a lot to look forward to.
Oh dear.
And that's another reason is, so great to get old, because we're just another step closer to, that paradise.
I don't think in terms of old or in terms of age, those mean nothing to me. They're just different phases of life.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when my age, they're all worried about their figures and their face cream and all this stuff. I'm like, let's talk about something else that I could care less.
Well, all things considered, I don't think I'm doing too bad for 86.
Oh, you're doing great. So I mentioned you in a podcast one day, and I said, she is a firecracker. You're just like bouncing with energy all the time.
Oh, yeah. All the time. Go, go, go.
And you look beautiful. I mean, I don't know your age, but you look absolutely beautiful.
Oh, you're a blessing. Thank you.
Yeah, you're my role model. I hope to be half as good and aware of near-death experiences and speak on their behalf at your age.
Just call me Scruffy.
Scruffy?
I'm Scruffy.
Oh, why is that?
Yeah, I'm a scruffy person. I'm always doing something and getting it into something and trying up something else and investigating something new. Yes, I'm scruffy.
I love that. Betcha. My mother-in-law, father-in-law, every time we go visit them, they'd be sitting in the living room in front of the TV. Every time. Like, you guys don't do anything. How about we go and do this and this, and we'll drive you, No.
Well, I'm always experimenting.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Does this work? Will that work? With metals, all kinds of things, with energy. You ought to see our house. I've got this experiment going on over here and that experiment going on over there. And this is involved in another experiment.
You're a mad scientist.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I belong to the U.S. Psychotronics Association. I'm a lifetime member.
What is that?
Psychotronics is mind over matter, where you are involved in and enjoy being able to direct energy or different elements in ways that are how do I explain it? In sometimes with your mind, sometimes with a feather, sometimes with a psychotronics device, um, some people call it pseudoscience. It's a more natural way of exploring science to see what you can see. And that's the organization I belong to, the United States Psychotronics Association.
Yes. Can you give an example? Like what? I'm still not clear.
Well, I have all kinds of laced and twisted metals that I have over our major sources of water and our major sources of electricity, because that will ensure that the water coming in is more healthy than normal water coming in. And the electricity that's coming into our home is of a better quality and grade than would be possible if I didn't have these metal rings over the fuse box and where energy is actually entering our home. So I'm always experimenting.
It makes me think of how the guys use this stick to find water. That always fascinated me, how they do that.
Yes, same kind of idea. It is U.S. Psychotronics Association, and you can find them on the web.
What else are you into?
All kinds of things. I'm experimenting with plants. I converted our porch out here to plant heaven, and I've got all kinds of experiments going on with plants. What was it? Maybe about 3 years ago, I bought an aloe plant at a Walmart. You know, it was about yay high, maybe 6-7 inches high, in a little pot. Brought it home, put it in a bigger pot. And it grew so fast, I had to keep changing the pots. And within a year and a half, it was 6 feet tall. I mean, it was 6 feet tall. It was huge. And nobody could believe it. And it got so big that it was coming out of its pot, because the pot wasn't big enough for something that gigantic. So I had to cut it down. And it's now in the same pot, but it's much smaller. It's only about maybe, I suppose maybe 4 feet tall now. So it's a lot smaller, not quite 4 feet. It's a lot smaller now than it used to be. And I had the tree men out not too long ago with our tree in the front, and then we have a crepe myrtle on the side, and then in the back we have 2 linden trees, cypress trees, and they just shake their heads. Your trees are so healthy and so huge. You know, they haven't been in that long. And they just go, what's happening with these trees? Well, maybe it's my energy. I don't know.
Have you thought about how that works? Like how the energy from our near-death experiences come out? All I know is when I go to tell my NDE, like in person, like in a group, the first time at Nancy Clark's group in Columbus, I told my NDE the first time in her group, I was levitating. I mean, I did not expect that.
Energy just moves out in tidal waves.
Yeah, and like when I do these podcasts, like my energy it gets so PMH.
Well, that's average. That's average, dear. Experiencer. That's average.
Yeah, it'll take me a couple hours to calm
Sure, that's
down
normal.
after a podcast.
It's normal in my house.
Yeah. But see, I don't stay that way. But it's like when I just start discussing this stuff, it's like something lets loose, like is like contained, like in a nut, like it's hard shell. You have to contain it. You can't talk about this stuff all the time. Nobody wants to hear it. And so when I get a chance to, it just feels like, and I'm just like,
Yeah, it's just the way it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it's more than that. It's more than that because if other people are around, they can feel. They'll come. It's like I feel your energy. I can feel your light. I want to hug you because I want part of that light. Or people don't even know what's going on with me. There's just more eye contact and more human contact, and it's just great. It's like nothing bad can come in this space. And one time I was outside, it was at night around a bonfire, and I got talking about this stuff to some family members, and we're walking to my husband's parents' house, and I felt somebody was walking with us because I didn't say anything. I started looking around like, who's with us? Of course, it's dark and nobody's there other than us, but I felt like, man, our spirits. I'm not usually feeling this thing. We went into the kitchen and we sit down with my stepdaughter and my mother-in-law, and I said, now ask my mother-in-law and tell her some of your experiences because she's just now finding out what I'm talking about, so you hear it from you too. And when anybody would start to walk in the room, there was this white light around this table where we were discussing this. And as anybody started to come in the room, in my mind, I'm thinking, this is sacred space. Don't come in here. And they would stop and they'd turn around and leave. And a few months later, my stepdaughter told me, when we were walking to the house, I felt like other people were with us. I'm thinking, go on. Because I don't want to taint what she's saying. And then she says, and when we was in there, I just felt like it was this space. It's just like it was, I'm like, I said, it was like me talking. You just described exactly everything I felt. And then her husband that night going home, was never been to church. He says, do you think I'd get baptized? Because of stuff he heard me talking about. And I'm thinking this guy's rolling his eyes and he's staying out of the kitchen because this woman's weird. She's on the weirdo train and she says, oh no. He was asked all kinds of questions. He wants to get baptized. And just like it just exists. It just is. And it's like we create it. And like you can literally feel it in the room. And other people see it. And I don't know. This is kind of my high.
It's normal, Peggy. It's absolutely normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not unusual. It's not different. It's not odd. It's normal for the average near-death experiencer to feel this way, to live this way, to be this way.
And my favorite guests are the ones that's never told it before. And they're so scared to come on. They don't think they can ever talk in public. And I'm like, trust me, you'll love it. And I says, no, it's not live. So it's just me and you, not until I, publish it on YouTube is it out there. And so every one of them has been hooked on the feeling after they've done it. Like, see, I told you. And next thing I know, I'm seeing them on all these other podcasts, and they're just going, and I'm like, yay!
Yeah. Well, I love the way life is. I'm very grateful for the way life is, and I'm very thankful that I am able to contribute. And that I'm able to laugh and that life is so beautiful.
I hope you write your memoir in a way that someone will be easily able to make it from a movie script later. And someday we'll get to see a movie about your life. I would like write it as if this is going to be a movie and I want this in there and I want this in there.
Well, I'll just flow and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Well, good luck on that.
I need to vamoose, dear.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Have a great day.
It's been a real joy to be with you.
Thank you. You too.
And to just talk. And to just let it flow. This is a treat for me because they're usually more formatted and we follow a certain script. And this time with you, we've just flowed, and that's good.
I'm glad you liked it. I'll let you go, though.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
love to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.